Hey there, it's Julie Hutchison here from Think, Be, Do Leadership. And I cannot believe it's day 20 of Communication Fest already. So day 20 of Communication, oh my goodness, Communication Fest. Top tips for increasing. What's going on today? I can't even speak, let alone talk to you about communication. Okay, top tips, improve your impact and influence. It's Monday morning or Monday afternoon. Okay, so what we're talking about today is authentic. And actually, that's a great example of being authentic because what if I'd have wanted to be absolutely perfect today? What if I'd have wanted to not trip over my words this morning? I'd be devastated, wouldn't I? And to be honest, that's kind of one of the things we're talking about here is that actually being authentic is one of those things that so many people miss out on because they're so worried about how they come across, what people think of me. And so I see people who like put them under so much pressure because they don't want to speak up or they're worried about what people are going to think. They need to be confident, but they don't feel confident. They don't feel heard, but they somehow need to be able to be this person and they feel that they're not actually being the true themselves. Okay, so when you trip up like that, that's amazing because people know that you're a human being. Okay, so that's what we want to talk about today. So actually, there you go. Must have done it on purpose. So being authentically you. So the thing about not being authentically you is that when we think we're covering something up, when we think that we want to be someone we're not, or try to be different from how we really are, or worry about what people think of us as the real us and try to modify certain parts about ourselves, the thing is we think we've covered it up, but we haven't, because people see straight through us. People can see, hear, feel a bit different about us, a bit icky about us when we try to be somebody we're not. So when we're not authentic, whatever we say is coming out of our mouth, or whatever we're doing with our body language, one, if it's not congruent, and two, if it's just not even them, people, even though they may not be able to put their finger on it, will notice something is wrong. It doesn't feel right. It feels a bit awkward. It doesn't seem to work. And therefore, people think you're a bit like strange or untrustworthy, or, something a bit weird about you. So they kind of will back off, or they won't believe what you're going to say, or they won't do the thing you want to do because there's something not quite right. And so that's really, really important. What I want to talk about today is, well, why do we feel like we have to be something we're not also? But also, what do we do about that then? How do we show up authentically? And that's such an important thing. So I have a little piece of paper here to remind me of the things that I want to talk about. So I want to talk about some of the fails first, and some of the things where people are really inauthentic, so that we can look at how do we change that. And don't get me wrong, this is not about nasty people. This is not about people on purpose manipulating a situation. No. What this is about is people who feel under pressure often, or feel that they need to perform, or feel that they need to be something that they're not, because of that pressure to perform. So here, what shall I start with? Okay, so here's the first one. No, I'm going to go with the second one actually. Okay, so when you're in a meeting, this first one is just when you're in these meetings, or you're with people in a group of people and you know what you want to say, and you sit there and first of all, you're like seething underneath, your toe is tapping under the table and you're thinking that person is speaking rubbish, or I don't agree with that. But there's one thing that you do, is that you do nothing. You say nothing. Now this is inauthentic 101. Is we think we're not doing anything. We think we're sitting back and saying, well, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to say anything because it might make it more awkward, or I don't want somebody to think that I disagree with them, or I don't want to be seen as the one who's pushing the buttons. Yeah. But the problem is if inside you disagree, then it's inauthentic to just let that go. And there's many other reasons why you shouldn't let that go, not least because many people in this world have let things go that have now come back to kick them in the backside 20 years later. Like people who've done really bad things and nobody wanted to speak up in the NHS or in the police or in big organisations, and there were no whistleblower was bold enough to say something, but then they get in trouble because they didn't say something when they could have said something. Now it's not always going to be one of them really bad Jimmy Savile moments or something like that, but what I'm saying is if you disagree and if you honestly feel that you don't want, or you need to say something, but you choose not to because you don't want to rock the boat, or you don't want to step up and be the one who says, I don't agree, then you're being inauthentic. Okay. And people will wonder, well, why did you not say anything then? And then people will be able to see that well, actually, we don't always need friends. What we need is to be honest. Okay, so that's the first one, not saying something. And then this next one is almost as bad, I think, actually, which is, well, we had a phrase for it in the police when it before, is saying something you don't actually believe. Okay, so rather than saying nothing, you're now going to agree with that person, for example. You're going to agree with somebody, or go, yeah, that's the thing, when you really don't agree with that. So actually, you say something, but what you're saying is not authentic because it isn't what you personally agree with. And again, why do we do that? Well, maybe it's because your boss has said something different, and you don't want to go, well, actually, I disagree. So you just go, oh, yep, that's a good idea, and then you stand by this thing that your boss is talking about, he or her is talking about, or you say something to somebody else, you're trying to convince them because it's something that other people have said, but secretly deep down you don't really believe it. Yeah, it's inauthentic, and actually what we're looking for is your ideas, and we're looking for the way in which you believe what you're talking about, because again, it's going to be see-through. People can see that you don't really believe it. Okay, so I'm not talking about going around slating the bosses because they believe one thing and you believe something else. That's not what I mean. If you truly don't believe in what somebody's saying, and it's what the organization's all about, then clearly you have to think about whether or not you can stand for that company. But if it's something that you disagree with and you're not saying what you say, and you just say, yeah, I agree with that, then that's a sign that you are not willing to stand up for those beliefs. And therefore, it's not going to look good when you're really talking about this, because you're not going to be that authentic communicator that you need to be. So that's number 2. The next one is trying to be who you are not. So not just about what you're saying, but trying to be somebody that you're not. And I do find this probably one of the most annoying things, because here I am, this is me. Okay, and we hear it all the time, if you don't like me, then you don't have to be around. And I don't agree with that, because I do think that we should all be able to work together, and we should all understand and look from other people's perspectives. And so we have an adaptability. We have to ebb and flow with people, totally. But what I'm talking about here is when somebody takes on the persona or the behavior of somebody who is maybe more popular or is more successful, and are doing it in a way that it's not them, they're not that person, but they think, in order to be successful, I have to be like Bob, and maybe Bob's like super high dominant direct person, and who have we got down here, Jim, is trying to act like Bob because he thinks, well, that's what's going to get me moving, that's what's going to get me, that's what's going to get people listening to me. And actually people just look at Jim and go, is he trying to be like Bob? They don't think, oh, Jim's just being super dominant and super confident. They can see that Jim's like trying to be like Bob. It's totally see-through, and this is the point. Inauthenticity is pretty see-through. Okay, so we don't want you to try to be someone else, because you're good enough. Yeah, so it's not just that we don't like it and it probably won't work. It's that actually you, as you are in your authentic self, whether you trip over your words like I just did, or whether you stutter, or whether you speak really quietly, whichever way that is, yeah, we can do some things around giving you some more skills, or changing the way that you see things, or helping you with your confidence. But you can't just pretend to be somebody else. Okay, now there is a thing called act as if, in terms of giving ourselves confidence, where we might say like, oh, I'm going to act like the swan even though my feet are paddling underneath. And I totally get that. I'm not quite in the same vein here. What I'm talking about is trying to be somebody else. You see somebody super confident and you're trying to be like them. We need to enable you to have your own authenticity, your own way of being. Okay, now, what's this last one? I can barely read my own writing. Should have been a doctor. Oh, yeah. Okay, so going back to, we don't want to say nothing, and we don't want to say something we don't believe in, and we're only saying it for them. Then the other thing we don't want to do is tell people what they want to hear, just because they want to hear it. Okay, so what do I mean? I've got an itch, hang on. What I mean is that Many people will go to one person and say something and they know that's what they want to hear. So it might be, oh yeah, Bob, I'll get that report done for you by Tuesday. And then they go to the next person and they say, oh yeah, Julie, I'll get that done for next Tuesday, knowing full well that they can't do both of those things. And they tell people what they want them to hear because they don't want to disappoint, knowing that the reality is it's going to disappoint at least one of them, because it cannot possibly, this as an example, they cannot possibly fulfill what they've just said, but they're just saying it to make that person feel better in the short term, obviously, and to just get that person off their back. And again, that's not going to help, is it? Because then when they find out that you didn't mean that, or that you aren't going to fulfill that promise, then what you've said, what you've done is actually remove the trust from the relationship. So please don't tell people just what they want to hear just because they want to hear it. If it's not true or you can't do it, then you need to be honest and open and authentic with it. Okay? Because at the end of the day, when we are honest and open, and some of the other skills that we worked on in the other days, then we can use those to be more honest and open and direct, and able to say what we really mean, and say what we like and what we don't like. That's okay. We can do that. And that means that we can be open with somebody about what's achievable and be assertive with them, and not be just doing it to get through the day. Yeah. So we're not inauthentic. We're actually authentic. We may disappoint, but at least then we're being honest and open and able to control the relationship, and create a relationship and make that relationship better, because they know that with us, then it is what it is. And we are going to adapt, and we're going to try and help, but we're not going to lie. We're going to say it when it needs to be said. And we're not going to say stuff just because they want to hear it, just because it makes my life easier. So please, 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 if this is something that you have had a problem with it, and then you're trying to be more confident by following what other people do, or trying to make people short-term happy, saying what they need to say, doing what you want them to do, then think about, in the long run, is this going to make me more confident, more capable? Is it going to make my communication better? And is it going to build relationships and trust in the way it needs to, if I want to grow me and grow the relationship and grow the results? Because if you are being inauthentic in any of these ways, we have to look at how can we change that, so that people will be able to trust you, be able to really want to work with you, and for you to be able to get the promotion, or the team to do what you want them to do, or whatever it is. It's so, so important about your authenticity. Okay, that is it for today. I've been a long one. Have a wonderful afternoon. Tomorrow we'll have another communication tip in our Communication Fest. And if you are finding these useful and you would like to know more about how to implement them for you personally in your situation, then we are running our 12-week Confident Communicator program, which you can be part of if you would like to. So give me a shout, private message me, and we can have a chat to see if that's a fit for you, and give you all the details and see if you would like to be part of that. Okie doke. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. And if you're watching this on replay, put #replay. And if you have a comment, and then I can get back to you and answer any questions that you have. Take care, everyone. And remember, you be you. I'll be me. Take care.